Let's get to know Alex Beijen. We're going to start off with some rapid fire questions. What is your star sign?
Virgo.
Favourite meal and who cooks it?
Crumbed schnitzel, and usually I cook it.
What sort of music do you like?
Having lived in America, I actually quite like rap, but generally I'm 80s and 90s music.
When you were at school, which teen group were you in?
Probably the geeks, but with a bit of crossover.
Crossover to?
To probably a bit more of the popular.
Are you anti-vax?
No, I'm not. Definitely not.
Last TV show or movie you watched?
Fargo. Still finishing on season 3.
Favourite mode of transport?
A car, preferably with a large engine. A bit of a petrol head.
Ever been arrested?
No.
What would you consider to be a good crime to be arrested for?
Sorry, couldn't answer that. You've thrown me.
If you were running for government, which party would you be with?
I'm not going to say, because actually as a mayor and a local official, you need to be neutral and you need to be able to work with any party who may be in government. So when I became mayor, I suspended any involvement with any national political party.
Okay, on to the serious questions now. Why are you running for mayor?
Well, I've done one triennium, and certainly it takes a couple of years to get to know how to be mayor and the tensions, the people, and how to influence regionally and on behalf of your district. We're also halfway through fixing a lot of infrastructural deficit, and that's why really it's finishing the job that we started, that this council has started.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing in the region, what would it be?
It would be to have up-to-date infrastructure to start from a clean slate.
If you win the election, what issue will you make your number one priority and how do you plan to go about it?
It really depends on the outcome of Three Waters legislation. If we put that to one side, a rising issue and one that we've been distracted this last triennium with water and infrastructure deficit is looking at climate change, rubbish, how we deal with waste, and getting a firm grip on dealing with that and agreeing with the public, which is one of their number one issues at the moment.
On that note, what is your stance on Three Waters and how might council do a better job?
Our stance on Three Waters is, or my stance and council's stance, I think, is that whilst we know that things need to change with regards to the way we deal with water, the option that has been offered by the government is totally inappropriate. There are multiple versions of how other countries have dealt with water infrastructure, and I feel they've picked one of the worst ones to copy. So with rising water standards from the government, it's meant that councils are fiscally unable to meet the standards. So they've created a self-fulfilling prophecy on the need for change.
So what is council going to do, or what could council do differently? Because there are quite a few water issues in South Wairarapa.
No more than any, but certainly they're being highlighted with a lack of investment over the last 10 years, and also the rising standards from government. All our treatment plants and water were compliant 2 years ago, and now they're not. What we can do better is to really know the condition of our assets and have a plan in place to replace them before they break. And that hasn't happened and is only happening now.
What is South Wairarapa routinely lacking or neglecting that you hope to change?
I think it's looking at the way we deal with rubbish, not using plastic rubbish bags, having efficient recycling, using the glass that's produced within our roading network, or using it locally instead of shipping it to Auckland. And also, one of the other big ones, in my opinion, is water retention and how we retain water and rainwater for the bad times. And it's never really been addressed. We are putting forward a compulsory new tanks for new builds, but we really need to roll that back on existing builds, existing houses as well.
What can the council do to help slow down or limit climate change?
We can do our part with regards to pollution, and also place restrictions, I think, or on what the way businesses operate from a sustainability perspective. The Then the other side to that is dealing with climate change, and that's coastal erosion and moving back from at-risk areas. So, it's a world problem, and really this does need to be led by central government in a practical and um, inclusive way with the public. But we will do our bit with regards to solar farms, solar and recycling.
Who are the at-risk groups in South Wairarapa and how will you help them?
We have spent a lot of time over the last 2 years with regards to community engagement. COVID and the lockdowns were a great wake-up call, I think, to all councils in New Zealand with regards to who are at risk and are they being um, contacted and ensure that they're safe. And as a result of that, with regards to Pacifica and a number of other minorities, have certainly risen to the fore, and we're addressing that. Um, my biggest bugbear at the moment is, and you may have seen in the media, is banking. So we have no banks left in the South Wairarapa as a district, and we're 1/3 of the entire Wellington region and land area. And whilst banks go, the majority of people don't. It's that 10 to 20% that are disadvantaged by not having banking services that we actually need to uh, make sure are being looked after and alternatives provided, as opposed to just dealing with the majority. So that's one of my bugbears with regards to big banks and big business. Yeah.
What's the issue that's most important to you personally, not necessarily the region, and why?
The the big one for me is waste. I just don't think we're dealing with it. I've seen some councils and they have a tagline, our waste, our problem, and then they immediately ship it off to a landfill in another area. And we really need to get to grips with how we deal with our impact on our environment and our day-to-day living.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say in relation to the upcoming elections?
I just think you've got to look at continuity. This is a time for unprecedented change in New Zealand. The government have three waters, they have RMA reform, they have future for local government, they have the climate adaptation, and all this requires a constant conversation to ensure that the local and rural people are being considered and represented at that level. And it's very hard for a new mayor to come in and immediately pick up where I would have left off.